So since there isn't that much information out there about this shaft, I figured I'd make a quick review, first impression / review. This is the Tiger Fortis LD, which is the 12.5 millimeter size of the new Tiger Fortis shafts, which are obviously carbon fiber. These come in 12 millimeter, called the Tiger Fortis Pro. It comes in 12.5 millimeter, which is called the Tiger Fortis LD, which is what this one is. It also comes in 13 millimeter. I believe they called that one the Tiger Fortis X. Not so sure why they picked such confusing names, but I'll leave that aside. That's not really relevant to the product. It's more of a marketing thing. Again, the reason I'm making this review is because there's really very little information about these shafts out there. So Tiger's marketing team probably should maybe invest a little more in getting its name out there, because this is really an excellent shaft, and I'll talk a little bit later about what makes it so great. But before I do that, I want to nitpick a little bit, because this is a $550 shaft. It is not cheap, and as a result, I think I have permission to nitpick, because it's more expensive than a Revo, much more expensive than a Synergy, which are considered, two of the best shafts on the market. So if you're going to price yourself above that, then you should really expect people to nitpick your product. So the first thing I have to nitpick, I'm not sure how well the camera will pick this up, but the tip, which is a Tiger Sniper tip, you can see how it's installed. I hope that's coming across on the camera. But the bottom layer, the red layer at the very base of the tip, is really uneven. So on this side, you can see it's very thin. And as I rotate it to the other side, it gets thicker. So it's installed a little bit unevenly, it seems, or that's just how this particular tip was manufactured. Either way, for $550, really not ideal. I think they could have done a better job in terms of installation of the tip. Again, for me, not such a big deal, because I probably will replace this tip. I am not a big fan of the Tiger Sniper tip. Maybe I'll talk a bit about that tip a little bit later. But yeah, it is what it is. Again, this won't impact how the shaft plays. It's just something that I'm nitpicking because of how expensive the shaft is. Another thing that I want to nitpick here is if I just screw this into my cue. Again, the camera won't pick this up, but there's ever so slightly a lip. I mean, you can tell it's not a big lip by any means, but you can feel it with your fingers. The pad of my fingers kind of getting stuck on a lip here. At the top, it's most pronounced, right here. Again, is it going to affect the way the shaft plays? No. Is it going to affect the way the shaft looks? Also no. It's just for $550, you'd really want it to fit perfectly flush. I've played with a Rhino carbon fiber cue, which was like $190, and that fit perfectly fine on my shaft. So again, just kind of annoying that for this price, it's not perfectly flush. Okay, so now I got all the negatives out of the way. Now let's talk about the positives of this particular shaft. First of all, the shaft is very slick, very smooth. If you like playing without a glove, open bridge or closed bridge, it's very smooth. With the Revo, which is what I used to play with before I got the shaft, you're almost forced into playing with a glove because it gets gunky and sticky very fast. So far, I've put in about maybe, 20 hours of play into the shaft, and I haven't faced that problem. Maybe with time it'll develop, but for now it feels very smooth, which I like. Aesthetically, I really like the way this carbon fiber cue looks. The orange ferrule, it's not really that, it doesn't really make that much of a difference when you're playing. It doesn't bother me at all, but it's also kind of cool aesthetically. And us pool players, we always like to have equipment that looks good, not just that plays good, right? So that's why people spend thousands of dollars on custom cues. So I think it's nice that it looks cool and unique. I think that's an extra little bonus for most people. But again, that's probably very subjective. Some people probably hate the orange ferrule. I think it looks pretty cool. Another cool thing is you can kind of see how the carbon fiber is wound. It's not like, it's probably most prominent right here on the bottom side of the cue. You can kind of see the lines going this way up the cue. And that's because it's, as far as I understand, it's a string of carbon fiber basically that's been wound all the way to the top of the shaft. again, it looks kind of cool, and also isn't very distracting. So when you're like this far away from the cue, ready to take your shot, you don't actually see that pattern. But it's kind of cool when you look at it up close. So yeah, it's about the aesthetics pretty much. As far as the feel, let's talk about the performance of the shaft. I will say this is the nicest feeling carbon fiber shaft I've ever played with. And I've played with the Revo, I've played with the Synergy, I've played with the Mezignite, Rhino carbon fiber, Universal Fire. I've played with pretty much every carbon fiber shaft you can think of, even the very obscure ones. And I haven't quite played with a shaft that feels this nice. What do I mean by feels nice? I mean, it gives a lot of feedback to the person playing the shot. It vibrates in such a pleasant way that other carbon fiber shafts don't. So for example, the Revo, as soon as you hit the cue ball, you don't really feel anything in the shaft. It's very stiff, it doesn't vibrate, and you kind of lose that nice feeling that you get with a wood shaft. I would say that's definitely not the case for the shaft. It vibrates a lot. That doesn't mean it's like flimsy, but it vibrates enough to really give you a nice feel of the shot you just played. I don't know how else to explain it other than just saying it has a really pleasant vibration that you would expect from a wood shaft, but not from a carbon fiber shaft. So I hate making comparisons between wood and carbon fiber because you're comparing, you know, apples to oranges. They're different materials. They feel completely different. They sound different. They play different. But in this particular case, I do think some comparison can be made because this shaft really has a nice feedback to it. As far as the sound, I've never been someone who cares too much about what the shaft sounds like. But if you're curious to know, the shaft doesn't have that high-pitched kind of ping that the Revo does. I think the Revo's kind of famous for that. It has more of a, you know, lower-pitched kind of thud. And you'll hear that once I roll some footage after this section where I'll actually show you some first-person footage of me using the shaft. And there you'll be able to hear what the shaft sounds like. It's very pleasant. It's a little bit loud, but it's, you know, again, I'm the wrong person to ask about this because sound never really bothered me in terms of shafts or cues or whatever. So I'm kind of indifferent about it overall. Deflection is what people really want to find out about when they hear of a new shaft. I would say I'm not going to do that stupid test, you know, it's very you know, unscientific, but I will say the deflection is pretty much identical to the Revo, and the way I know that is because I basically took the Revo off this cue, put the Tiger shaft on this cue, and I was immediately potting the same shots that I normally would while adjusting for the same deflection that I normally would. So it is very low deflection, comparable to a Revo, probably almost exactly the same as a Revo, honestly. The only difference is this shaft does transfer a little bit less energy, at least from what I can tell, than the Revo. That probably has something to do with the amount that it vibrates, so you probably lose some kinetic energy transferring to the cue ball in that vibration. So I did have to adjust. I was under-hitting a lot of my shots, and I had to adjust to kind of a firmer stroke. Again, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I would say it's neither. It's just something you have to adjust to whenever you buy a new shaft, how hard it plays or how soft it plays. Overall, I would say this shaft feels incredible to play with. It's very smooth. Oh, one more thing. This is 30 inches. So you have the option to order it in 30 inches, which is awesome. You don't get that with all shafts. So this particular one is 30 inches. You can also get it in 29. But the fact that you have the option for 30 inches is awesome. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Overall, I think it's the best feeling shaft on the market. The best playing shaft on the market. I really haven't tried anything that wowed me as much as this on my first couple of hits. I think it's about as good as anything else out there. And I highly recommend it to anyone, especially this 12.5 LD model. Who knows, maybe the Pro and the X play a little bit differently, but for this particular one, I think it's just perfect. Taper is very pleasant, the hit feels incredible, and the deflection is very low, so it plays really well. And I'll show some footage now, some first-person footage of me using the shaft, so you can get a good sense of how the deflection feels and looks from a first-person point of view, and also how it sounds, which, as far as I know, is important for some people. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments, and I'll respond if I have the information that you're looking for. So yeah, thank you.